Tonight's case of the wrongfully convicted is out of Minnesota. Minneapolis native Sherman Townsend spent more than 10 years behind bars after being convicted of a burglary he didn't commit. Despite a lack of any physical evidence tying Sherman to the crime, he was found guilty by a mostly white jury and given the maximum sentence of 20 years. With the help of the Great North Innocence Project, Sherman was released from prison in 2007 after another man confessed to the robbery. I'm joined now by Julie Jonas, legal director for the Great North Innocence Project. Thanks for coming on tonight, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
Sherman spent over a decade in prison for a crime that we now know he didn't commit, even turned down a plea deal that would have cut his sentence down to 4 years in prison. Why did the police from the start believe that Sherman committed this crime?
Well, it was really a case of rounding up the usual suspects. A home was broken into. No one was injured and nothing was taken, but the homeowners were there and the perpetrator fled. The police didn't really have any clues or leads, but then the neighbor from next door came over while they were investigating and said that while he was coming home that night from the bar, someone came running from the house and knocked him over. He gave a very broad description: African-American, male, average age, average build, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, on an August evening. And the police put that description out and were driving around and they saw Sherman walking down the road. And Sherman did in fact have a history of a few burglaries. And so they put him in the squad car and they brought him back to the scene of the crime, and they did something called a show-up identification, where he was the only person shown to the victims and the neighbor who was the witness, coming out of the back of a squad car, right? You could hardly have anything that was more biasing than that. The homeowners were not certain, but the neighbor said that Sherman was the person who he saw running from the house.
Now, Julie, as we mentioned, there was no physical evidence linking Sherman to the crime, so the prosecution's case was almost entirely built on the testimony of a neighbor who said he witnessed the crime. What can you tell us about that neighbor and the role he played in Sherman's conviction?
It really was only the neighbor witness who could testify. There was no physical evidence, as you said. There was his criminal history, and then the neighbor, because the victims in the house were never certain it was him. The neighbor ultimately tried to take back his testimony and tried to avoid coming into court, told the private investigator for Sherman's defense attorney that he wasn't certain, that he didn't think Sherman was the guy. But of course, the court system just thought he was a reluctant witness who didn't want to get involved. So they forced him to come into court, and he did testify against Sherman, and he was really the only witness who testified against Sherman.
Now, was the defense not cross-examining him on his hesitancy in front of the jury? Was that not made known to the jury at the time?
They did. He was cross-examined about that and his prior statement to the private investigator. But again, the prosecutor just painted this man as a reluctant witness who didn't want to get involved. Sherman was convicted.
Now, you've been with the Great North Innocence Project for close to 20 years. Just how common are cases like these? I mean, we cover a different case of wrongful convictions every week, so I'd imagine they're all too common, especially one where a witness knowingly gives false testimony.
Well, actually, that is the number one cause of wrongful convictions. When you look at wrongful convictions as a whole, there's been almost 3,000 of them in this country. They're studied and cataloged on the exoneration registry, and there's been nearly 3,000 since 1989. If you look at all of those cases, the number one cause for wrongful convictions is perjured testimony or false accusations, and that's exactly what happened in this case. It's very common, unfortunately.
Now, after the jury found Sherman guilty, the judge gave him the maximum sentence of 20 years. Here's Sherman talking about the moment he found out he was going to prison.
I felt like I had a circuit board in my head and the circuits were about to, she said 20 years when I got sentenced. And she said 20 years, it's just it just kind of blew my mind.
Sherman's case was one of the very first cases that the Great North Innocence Project took on. How did the organization first become aware of his case?
So our applicants write to us, and he was one of the earliest letters that we got. And there was something very compelling about Sherman because he said to us, "Look, I'd been to prison before. As a matter of fact, if you look at my past cases, I always pled guilty, but I didn't do this one." And there was something about that that was very striking and honest. The other thing that was very interesting in his case was reading the transcript just before his trial started. He was, in fact, offered a very good plea negotiation. The standard sentence for this would have been 4 years in prison, but the judge indicated that maybe he wouldn't even get any additional time because no one was injured and nothing was taken. Sherman said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't take that deal because I'm innocent." After the trial, when the judge came to sentence him, she imposed the maximum possible sentence of 20 years. I feel like that's the trial tax that many defendants pay in our country if they have the temerity to exercise their constitutional right for a trial. It cost him potentially 16 more years in prison.
Now, close to a decade after Sherman was convicted, David Jones finally confessed to the crime. And a short time after that, you met with Jones where he walked you through what actually happened. Tell us how that meeting unfolded.
Well, so we got, after Sherman had been in prison about 10 years, and we had already been reviewing his case and really getting nowhere. We thought the crimes were being committed by a different person, but we weren't able to prove that. I got a letter from David Jones, and David Jones said, "I'm in prison with this guy named Sherman Townsend, and I want you to know that he didn't do the crime." And in fact, David Jones was the real perpetrator, and he had framed Sherman. He was also the neighbor. So it was David Jones who had actually broken into that house that night, and afraid that he would be recognized and caught, he went to the police and said it was a different black man. And he admitted that at a hearing too. He said, "I figured if I told them it was a black man, they would believe me," and they did. And now, I should say David Jones, at the time when he saw Sherman, was in prison for his own crime, crime of rape, but he did have what I believe is a true crisis of consciousness. He was probably sober for the first time since he was a teenager, realized Sherman was still in prison 10 years later for a crime that Jones, in fact, had done, and really wanted to right that wrong. It was kind of amazing.
Amazing, but despite being released after Jones's confession, I mean, Sherman hasn't been officially exonerated. So instead, he was told that if he agreed to withdraw his motion for a new trial, he would be resentenced to time served. Why do you think the DA's office chose not to exonerate him?
Well, you would have to ask the DA's office about that. You know, I always think that they're afraid of having egg on their face. They didn't want all of the press or possible financial considerations that might come from a full exoneration. You know, it was a deal with the devil that happens with many of our clients. They come right up to the precipice where they've proven their innocence, and then they're offered this deal. And you have to remember that the trial didn't go so well for him, right? When he trusted the system the first time around, he ended up spending 10 years in prison. Now they say to him, "Look, you can get out of prison today if you just drop your post-conviction motion. You don't even have to plead guilty to anything because you've already been found guilty. You can walk out the door." An additional consideration for Sherman was that his mother was very ill. She, in fact, died 3 or 4 months after his release. So at least he got to spend time with her, but his name was never cleared.
Wow. Well, Julie, last question. I mean, it's been over a decade since Sherman was released from prison. How is he doing?
He's okay. He's nearly 70 years old, and he's still working. In the video that you've been showing, he's working as a custodian at a local community center. I think he likes that job, but he would very, very much like to retire. And one of the things he always tells me is that in addition to losing those 10 years of his life, he lost 10 years of work and 10 years of Social Security payments. So even though he's certainly at an age where most of us would be thinking about retirement, he can't.
Julie Jonas, legal director for the Great North Innocence Project. Thank you so much for your time tonight.